Hello everyone and welcome to yet another video. Been on quite a run this week of making them, and this one's funny. It actually came about because I got on my old iMac computer and it run an update for the video editing software, which it's not done for quite some time, so I just naturally assumed, oh, what the hell, it's probably made things even worse than before. But I thought, well, I'll open it up and I'll try it anyway. And lo and behold, it's actually improved things. I can actually use the video editing software on my iMac again, which is how I always used to make these videos in the past. So, funnily enough, since I made the video, the topical ramble video, which was about 3 videos ago now, where I said I was kind of limited in being able to put these gameplay videos up without actually just putting up live streams, all that's actually changed. Now I've actually got more options at the moment than before, though I suspect I'm probably just one update away from all of this falling on its arse. That's normally the way, isn't it? Well, anyway, for this video, when I was talking about Halo, I touched upon the fact that it was kind of a crossing point between classic first-person shooters and more modern first-person shooters that came after it. It was almost a watershed game, as it were, and it set me thinking. It made me think about the fact that we've started to see, actually, in the last sort of 2-3 years, a resurgence a little bit of those more classic first-person shooters. And it was interesting to me because for a long time it seemed that the old style FPSs were over. Everything was following the Call of Duty formula. They were, which were in the multiplayer. Obviously, it's very fast paced, and the single player campaign not always been an afterthought. I think that's unfair. I think the Call of Duty games have probably tried more than many others to actually put a decent single player campaign within the game itself, but certainly they weren't as comprehensive and as lengthy a campaign, for want of a better word, than before. And it was kind of interesting to me because I thought, well, those days are over. And then the new Wolfenstein series of games come along, and they just didn't even bother with multiplayer at all. They were very much focused on the entire single player experience and story, and they really benefited from it. They're excellent games. I did, touch upon Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, in my previous video, and said, aside from one element of the story being a bit ridiculous, but still fun at the same time. I mean, good God, you can't take those stories too seriously. Giant robot dogs and Nazis, and the Nazis you can, but the giant robo-Nazis or undead Nazis and stuff like that, it's clearly being played for a specific thing, which is fantasy. It sort of dials into that sort of genre. It's interesting, we've seen horror movies with Nazi zombies in, and do you know, actually, I think the first film I saw a reference to Nazi zombies was probably American Werewolf in London, which I think came out, was it 1980, 1981, round about that period of time. I actually saw that as a kid, and I remember seeing that bit where after he's been attacked by the werewolf, the guy's having a nightmare while he's in hospital, and his house gets attacked by these Nazi zombies, and they murder his family, and then he wakes up and one's hiding behind the curtain and murders the nurse. It was like a dream within a dream type of thing, and they scared me more as a kid watching that bit than the whole werewolf thing. I thought the werewolf was cool, but the noise that they made and the viciousness of that scene, that freaked me out more than anything else. That's just a little side note, just remembering now, thinking about it. And yeah, it's funny how those type of things stay with you. But yeah, I mean, but going back to what I was saying, the single player element to it was so good. And then you got Doom came out a couple of years ago now. God, it seemed like a couple of years, but yeah. And it was fantastic. I mean, that did have multiplayer in there, but the single player was out of this world. I mean, I've got a playthrough of that game on my channel. And I never thought I'd play a Doom game that actually came close to being like the original Doom for me. That came as close as any that came after it. I mean, I'm not when I say original Doom, I kind of include Doom 2, the original Doom 2, within that. Doom 3 was a departure. It was still an excellent game, but it went the more survival horror route. And that again, I didn't have a problem with. It went more for the in-your-face type of jump scares. And it worked because it was sufficiently different enough from Doom for that to actually be a payoff. So I didn't have a problem with that. Some people didn't like it. I actually enjoyed that they tried to do something different. And then you've got Doom 2016, which again, they went back to that really hardcore in-your-face first-person shooting action, fast-paced, where the more aggressive you are playing the game, the better it is. And I loved it. It just took me right back to how I felt playing the original game. And then you got Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, which has just come out towards the back end of last year. And again, like I've already said, it's another fantastic game. The action in it is great, and there's an old school feel to it. You have to collect health packs to top your health up. There's none of this sort of hiding behind a wall waiting for the red haze around the corners of the screen to fade away. You have to go out there. The game forces you to have to fight to survive rather than just hide to survive, which is one of the things a lot of the more modern first-person shooters sort of fell into that trope. And at times it made the games very, I won't say very easy, because if you ramp the difficulty up, you're just going to keep dying, but they weren't as challenging on the normal difficulty settings. And it also took away, I think, an element of strategy, because knowing when to save the game, when the sort of save anywhere thing came in, even when you were limited with health packs, that in itself became a strategy. You had to think about how you were going to go about each section of the game. You couldn't just go charging into an area while you had like 10% health, because you were going to die. So even though the games were more run and gun, you actually also had to approach each situation tactically, not tactfully, but tactically, very dependent on how much health you had. And so, they did actually introduce different elements of games. Going back playing Doom, I to this day have tactics on how I will take out certain levels. There'll be certain particular routes around a level I'll take. There'll be certain bad guys I'll target first. And it was a great dynamic. Whereas what tended to happen with a lot of more modern first-person shooters, where they became, in many respects, funnily enough, actually more linear. Because even though some of the games became more open in terms of the sort of environment, they became more narrow in the sense of gameplay. And in fact, a lot of the times, I always sort of felt like all I needed to do was just play the game to complete it. And what do I mean by that? Well, with a lot of the older games, you had to get good. You had to master the game to finish it. Just playing it wasn't enough. You had to think about what you were doing, how you were going to do each bit, what approach you were going to take. And it's a mechanic that in many ways the Souls games came out with. You can't just run up to a boss, or indeed run into combat in the Soulsborne games and expect to live. You've got to learn the strengths and weaknesses of the bosses, even if the lower end bad guys can take you out in the game if you're not careful. So they feel more old school in that sense. People say that they're phenomenally difficult. I don't tend to agree with that at all. I mean, play a game like Ghosts and Goblins or Ghouls and Ghosts. They are phenomenally difficult games. What those games were games that actually made you learn about the bad guys. And Doom was the same, because you'd know that certain weapons were going to be better to deal with certain types of enemies. You know, one of the things with Doom 2, I think that kind of took away a little bit, was that the double barrel shotgun became a one-size-fits-all weapon. And although arguably it can be nominated as one of the best weapons in gaming history, it actually took away certain things that Doom had. I mean, you had the pump-action shotgun, which was very useful. But, for example, you wouldn't want to try and get up close and personal with the chain gun guy with the pump-action shotgun, because unless you had the level setting on super easy or whatever it was called, it was going to take more than it's going to take more than one shot to put him down. And if he started firing that Gatling gun at you, you were going to get minced. So, in the same way that you just wouldn't want to go after a cyber demon with a pump action shotgun. You want to use your heavy weapons, and the same with the Knights and Barons of Hell. But the double barrel shotgun seemed to be really effective against just about everybody, apart from the really big bosses like the Cyber Demon and the Spider Mastermind, where the RPG and BFGs really became more useful. So, yeah, I'm kind of doing my usual getting kind of way off track thing here with this, but it's just how I saw it. It's how I saw the sort of evolution and how things changed in more modern day first person shooters. One of the things as well which really annoyed me was boss battles in modern first person shooters became quick time events. And that was something that frustrated the hell out of me, because it took away too many tactics. It took away tactics of I'm sorry, I've just got to stop there. That button, switch, thing, whatever, said Harrow Dave above it, and that is obviously a clear reference to 2001 A Space Odyssey. That's HAL. So I have never noticed that before. I was just watching the video back there, and I saw that. I'm going to talk about this game in a second as well, because I did pick this game out for a reason too, to showcase while I was doing this. This is Shadow Warrior, by the way, on the PlayStation 4, which is a remaster of a classic first-person shooter that was on PC. But anyway, yeah, just going back to my overall view at the start of this video, even though I'm probably getting close to halfway through. Yeah, the whole thing kind of changed because game developers wanted to put out a more cinematic experience, and that has always been something I've had a problem with, especially with first-person shooters, because what really works and what's important, I think, for a first-person shooter is the fact that it is a first-person shooter. You have the first-person perspective. If you look back to games that people regard as being the absolute classics, you go back to Half-Life, for example, the immersion of you playing as Gordon Freeman in that game is never broken. It's never broken. You start the game as Gordon Freeman. You through his eyes on just a typical day at work in a science lab. There's no point do you cut away and see, oh, there's Gordon Freeman. That's what he looks like. There's never a point where that happens, because, in fact, you wouldn't have even known really what he looked like had it not been for any pictures found of him in game, or the box art for the game. You at all times were in that first person perspective. These days it seems like you have 10 minutes of game, then a cutscene. But ignoring what I said about some of these first person shooters going back to more old school, should I say the trend was to do that. It became very stop-start. One of the things that I remember that pissed me off more than anything else when I played Metal Gear Solid 2 was the fact that I seemed to be spending more time watching the game than playing the game. And that's always been a bit of a frustration for me. I'm not that arsed what a game has to say. I'm not that interested in enduring hours and hours of narrative in a game. You can have a compelling story while the game is playing. You don't have to break away from the action and do a cutscene. And that's, I think, one of the things that the new Doom and the new Wolfenstein games nailed, was the fact that they actually put the focus on the game. Now, Wolfenstein has a few more cutscenes than Doom did, but Doom actually went out of its way to show the player that this was going back. This was going back to old school, because there's the bit at the beginning of the game where the guy is talking to the Doomslayer, you, and he's coming out with all of the usual crap, and it's like, here comes a really lengthy cutscene, and it doesn't happen. Instead, your guy just grabs the monitor and shoves it out of the way. And it said its intention out there. It's like, no, there's no bullshit in this. This is going back to what games were like. You had the the story for Doom, I've said this in the past, is hilarious, because basically the backstory is like 4 paragraphs in the instruction manual. You can read it in a couple of minutes. That's it. There are no cutscenes. And yet, I never felt that I needed them. I never felt that I needed a very protracted hour after hour after hour cutscene where I feel like I'm watching a film, and occasionally this wonderful art of a story that's been unveiled is interrupted by gameplay. I never really felt that when I played the original Doom, and there's been a number of games in recent years where I felt like a passenger. And I was kind of pleased in many respects, actually, with the last Metal Gear Solid game. Although, of course, it had a lot of cutscenes in it. Also, had an extraordinary amount of gameplay in it. Now, it was obviously going to be more of an open world sandbox type game. But, believe me, when you compare that to the number of times I did literally 3 things in the original Metal Gear, I sort of did like 3 or 4 things, and then it was another cutscene. Did something else, and it's another cutscene. When I say from the original Metal Gear, I mean Metal Gear Solid 2. Because I felt that was a particular... It was the first game that I really noticed, my God, there's a humongous amount of cutscenes involved in this. And so, you look at that, and if ever you're playing a game and you think, Jesus Christ, I wish it'd show up, it was that. It was the original Metal Gear Solid game. And so I've done it again. Done it straight away again. Metal Gear Solid 2. And a lot of games after that seemed to follow suit. Because that became fashionable. They became obsessed. There's this obsession with being cinematic. No, don't be cinematic. Be a video game first. You can tell a great story as a game is going on. You can do it in narrative. You can have somebody talking into your ear while you're playing. You can come across messages in the environment. You don't have to break the immersion. And that's what I loved about the more old school classic first person shooters, is that they tended to go more for let's focus on the gameplay, let's focus on putting content out there that the player actually can play and interact with, rather than just becoming a more passive experience. So yeah, going back to this is, as I've said earlier, is the kind of a remake, reboot of Shadow Warrior, which came out on the PC many moons ago. And again, this has a lot of the classic sorts of tropes in first-person shooters and how it used to be. I mean, here, for example, is a classic boss battle. You know, this isn't a quick time thing. You see there, I have this power. I think it's chi power. God, I really, someday I am going to learn things about what things are called in video games, so don't come off as a complete arsehole when I talk about these things. Which you can use to heal yourself, or you can find health packs in the environment. It's basically an unlockable skill. And this is kind of fascinating because even though this is an old school game, it does actually have some RPG type elements in it, but it's very much a fast paced action first person shooter. You have scores of bad guys to kill and so on and so forth. And I've actually a couple of weeks ago downloaded the sequel. I've been waiting for ages to see if they'd bring it out, if Devolver would bring out a physical copy of it, but I don't think they're going to do it. Certainly not in Europe. So it was on special on the PlayStation Store, so I downloaded the sequel, and I will do a video for that game to have a chat about that, because that's fantastic as well. It's a great game. And today, while I was out, I managed to pick up a physical copy of Rogue Trooper, the remaster of the PlayStation 2 game for the PS4. So I'm looking forward to playing that as well. And you know, the other trend as well with first-person shooters these days is to go down this path of having too much online bullshit in there. I mean, a lot of games that have been quite successful, for example Overwatch, I've no problem with that. I've no problem with a game like Overwatch being successful, or you know, a game like what's the other thing everybody PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. For me, it's just multiplayer only. It's something it's a fad. It'll go. Eventually they'll release a sequel. You'll probably get another 12 to 18 months before they shut the servers off, and it's gone. And fine, you know, if that's what people want, that's great. Not for me though. Not for me. I find them frustrating because one of the things that always happens is you get people find out ways to cheat, and there's nothing worse. There's nothing sucks more than when you're playing against somebody who's cheating. You know, we all, or the game code is awful. We all been in that situation where you unload an entire clip into somebody, and they're like Captain Scarlet. It's like that beginning of Captain Scarlet where, you know, that guy shoots a machine gun at him, and he just turns around and shoots the guy once and kills him. That happens a lot in first-person shooters, and it becomes frustrating. I mean, it was a plague of Call of Duty. I don't know if it's just as bad now, but it certainly was really bad in the past, and it put me off because it's like, you know what? If somebody out there is cheating like that, is being a complete arse and cheating, and that's what they, you know, that's all that they can do is just cheat the living shit away. If they get enjoyment out of that, if winning means so much to them that they have to cheat, I've no interest in it. And it does get frustrating. And it's not always people that cheat. Sometimes it's just really bad. People say netcode. I don't know if that is the correct thing that causes these issues, because I've I've heard people say, oh, it's really bad netcode that causes these issues, and then I've heard developers say actually it's not netcode. That's not the reason why. Personally speaking, I don't know. I'm not a developer, but I know that it is a problem in some games more than it is in others. I also understand that lag can cause an issue. That was a real big issue back in the early days on the 360 when I used to play online quite a bit. Lag was an issue, and it was an issue particularly in likes of Call of Duty 2. You know, you'd shoot somebody, and again, I call it the Captain Scarlet scenario would happen, and then when you would see the kill cam, you're looking at your guy, and he's not even fired a shot, but he's emptied the clip from your end of it. And I don't know whether that's still as big an issue now. I do see a lot of people complaining about connectivity issues. I see people complaining all the time about cheating. I see people talking about, you know, lag issues, and so nothing really seems to have changed on that front. And it's one thing, you know, when you crap a multiplayer online only games like I am, it's one thing to be crap. It's another thing then to have to try and overcome technical difficulties or players using things to their advantage. I've heard of things like lag switches. I don't know what they do, I don't know how they work, but I assume obviously it's a method of cheating. I don't know whether that's like one of these urban myths or whatever. Just had to take a drink there before my mouth caved in completely. Yeah, I don't know how much validity there is behind those things. I mean, for me personally, like I say, I've definitely had the Captain Scarlet scenario happen a number of times, and there's nothing that I can do. Nothing I can do about it at all, and it does get to be massively annoying. And again, it's why I've always preferred to go back and play the single-player, comprehensive single-player campaigns. I can enjoy the game more. You know, I can appreciate the game more. I can get into the game more. You know, when you're in this scenario, when you're playing a game, and everything's like 1,000 miles an hour because you're playing against all these other people online, and I don't know. I personally, I don't see the attraction in online only games, but I can understand why people like them, but I don't. For me, there's nothing attractive about them. I mean, at the moment, like I say, that PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, whatever it's called, that seems to be the in thing at the moment, the in vogue title, and fine, but I can get it'll go the way that a lot of these other online only multiplayer shooters will go, in that it'll disappear. People will get bored of it. I mean, apparently it's only got one map, so I don't know how long that's going to last for. I mean, I know it's not the finished product, the game, at the moment, but I don't know how long that'll go on for. But certainly from my perspective, playing that, I get bored of that really quick. Even if I was fantastic at the game, I'd get bored of just playing one map over and over again. I'd want something, I want a bit extra bang for my buck, you know, than that. So I don't know, not for me. And I've kind of tried to make a promise to myself not to go out of my way to buy these online only experiences. It's one of the reasons I've stuck away from Gran Turismo Sport. The fact that you need to be online to save the single player is just mind-blowingly stupid to me. It's just mind-blowingly stupid. I mean, another reason I played Destiny to death, and that was enjoyable, but I traded it. I put about 60 hours into it in the DLC, and I traded it because I knew I had that for about 18 months to 2 years, and I knew that the sequel was going to come, and it'd probably be worth about 50 pence. It'd be probably worth pennies in the trading if I waited any longer, and I got a pretty good price for it. I just traded it, got rid. I wasn't going to play it anymore. You know, that if it had had a proper offline mode to it, I would have kept it. I would have kept it to go back and play it again at some later date, because what was there was very good. But, you know, the trend with a lot of first-person shooters to go down this online only thing is just annoying to me. It's just ridiculous. It's frustrating. It's unnecessary. I don't know much about this Anthem that's coming out, but I suspect it'll be exactly the same. I suspect it will be another a Destiny clone, because EA has to have their Destiny clones. So unless that's got an offline mode, I won't be bothering with that either, though I suspect it won't, because EA don't seem to like offline single player campaigns too much. They seem to have a major problem with that, in spite of the fact that there's been a hell of a lot of evidence to the contrary to say that they're not things that are going into the night, that people still love playing them. And a lot of it ties in, I think, also to the fact that video game publishers cannot budget for games properly. I mean, look at this game. This game came out, it wasn't full priced. I think it looks fantastic. You know, it's not the most amazing game, it's not blowing anybody's hair back, but it looks great. It plays great. It's a great, fun game at a reasonable price. You know, it's about budgeting. It's about spending the appropriate amount of money on a game. We live in this. I think, to round up, I'm going to kind of say this. We live in this game. That'd be weird. We live in this age where things can't coexist in gaming. It's like, oh no, we can't have single player video games. They've all got to be multiplayer, or they've all got to be online, or I've got to have this kind of co-op element built in. Even if you can play them by yourself, we still have to have these things within the game. They can't coexist, apparently. Listening to EA, the way that they carry on, no, we can't make a single player linear Star Wars game. We can't do that. Why? You've got the money. Why can't you diversify your portfolio? Why does everything have to be so formulaic, or, you know, have this sort of universal approach to things, that all of the games in our catalogue have to tick these boxes? Like, look at the movie industry. A big movie studio doesn't say we can only make sci-fi movies, or we can only make dramas, or we can only make historically based films, or, you know, we can only do comedies. They do all sorts of different things, and they appeal to different audiences. And then how these things survive is by merit. Okay, it's not by anything other than that. Like, you know, if it's what people want, people will go and watch it. But, you know, just because, like, horror, like the Saw movies, for example, just because that's popular at the time doesn't mean to say that's all you have to do. But the video game industry is obsessed with being very sort of, you know, let me just say this, for an industry that seems to be very much going on about diversity all the time, it shows a complete lack of it when it comes to the type of games it wants to put out there. And I find there's a kind of a funny irony to that. And we're told, we the gamer are being told how diverse we must be, whilst the very people that are telling us this, and the games companies, aren't acting like that whatsoever. They're not acting like that at all. It's like, make the gamers feel bad, but they're the ones that are being very narrow-minded, very single-tracked. There's no reason. Fine, if you don't think that single player first person shooters are going to make you billions of dollars, then don't make big budget first person shooters. This isn't a big budget first person shooter, but I bought it, played it from beginning to end, and absolutely loved it. You know, there's plenty of examples of that in the previous generation. There's been plenty of examples of those type of games going all the way back to the PC. They weren't big budget first person shooters, but they were nevertheless enjoyable. And it seems that the games industry has completely forgotten that. It's completely forgotten that, hey, you know, actually, we can still make these games. EA could have made that linear Star Wars game. Anybody that says they couldn't is talking utter shit. And EA are talking utter shit. They could have made that game. They could have made that game, and it would have probably sold enough to have made them money. I mean, if it was a great game, look who was attached to it. Like Amy Hennig, who wrote the Uncharted games. Yeah, hang on a minute. They had really comprehensive offline single-player campaigns to them. And they sold gangbusters. Oh, I'm sorry, EA. Did you forget about that? I mean, they actually hired her because of that. You know, and you can believe the spiel EA come out with, you know, the usual damage control that these, you know, corporate shithouses come out with. You know, well, there was problems with it, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, if you're making... It was their problems that affected the Mass... It was EA's tampering, that affected Mass Effect Andromeda. This insistence on using a shitty engine like Frostbite, which is great for certain things, but ain't great for everything. I shouldn't have said shitty, because it isn't a shitty engine. But it's not suitable for all. But EA's insistence, every one of their games has got to use it. You know what? That's just corporate tampering. And then bleating about the fact that, you know, oh, well, it had a troubled production. No, you just interfered because you're shit at your job. I've always said the first thing that I would do if I bought EA would be to sack their entire management department, because they are amongst the biggest load of arseholes, I think, on the face of the planet. They don't know what they're doing. And what happened with Star Wars Battlefront 2, with the microtransactions, proved that. You know, they allowed something that has a really good single player, and that's the weird thing, it has a really good single player campaign. But they allowed all of the drama with that to overshadow it. But anyway, I've said all I need to say about this. There's still room for classic first-person shooters in the market, and then people that say contrary are just talking out of their arse. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.